a warm welcome to the news at 7 on NTA International. I am Elizabeth Omori. And our sign language interpreter is Hannah Olainka. Now let's take a look at the headlines. Rescue operation continues in the wake of Morocco's deadly earthquake, just as about 10,000 persons are missing in the Libyan flood. Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, Kevin McCarthy, directs impeachment proceedings against President Joe Biden. And prospects of having roofs over their heads brighten with First Lady Remi Tinubu's cash disbursement to victims of crisis in Plateau States. We begin with Morocco's earthquake. Rescuers digging through the rubble after Morocco's deadly earthquake says traditional mud brick, stone and rough wood housing in the high Atlas Mountains reduced the chances of finding survivors. Details with Justin Bem-Hui.
Morocco's most powerful earthquake since at least 1900 has killed at least 2,681 people, the state TV said in the latest update of the human toll, with thousands more injured and many still missing. The traditional homes, some hundreds of years old, some built more recently, have long been a popular site for tourists traveling to the mountain from Marrakesh. They are often built by the families themselves to a traditional pattern without any architect's help and with extensions added when they can. With no major earthquakes for a long time, few people had no thought to consider the risk of a tremor. However, structures collapsed easily in mounds of debris when the quake struck late on Friday. Meanwhile, the Red Cross is appealing for more than $100 million to provide desperately needed assistance in Morocco. Caroline Holt, Global Director of Operations at the International Federation of Red Cross and the Red Crescent Societies, says,
"We are seeking 100 million Swiss francs to be able to deliver on the most pressing needs at this time, which include health, water, sanitation and hygiene, shelter, relief items and basic needs."
Morocco has authorized rescue teams to come to its aid from Britain, Qatar, Spain and the United Arab Emirates as search and rescue teams from Morocco and abroad continue to dig through the rubble of broken mud brick homes, hoping for signs of life. Justin Bem-Hui, NTA News.
Meanwhile, the Nigerian Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs, under the leadership of its President General and Sultan of Sokoto, His Eminence Muhammad Saad Abubakar III, has condoled with His Majesty King Sidi Mohammed VI, the head of state of the Kingdom of Morocco, over the 6.8 magnitude earthquake that struck the high Atlas mountain range of the country. The council is said is devastated by the tragedy that has so far claimed over 2,000 lives and left several hundreds injured. In a statement signed by Professor Salisu Shehu, Deputy Secretary General of the Council sincerely shares with the King the pain and grief the Kingdom is going through in this very trying moment. The Council prays for the repose of the souls that have departed, quick recovery for the wounded, and fortitude to bear the monumental losses. The Council enjoins all Jumat Imams in Nigeria to dedicate their Friday sermons this week to the Morocco calamity. Now, at least 10,000 persons are feared missing in Libya as floods caused by a huge storm burst dams, swept away buildings as much as a quarter of the eastern city of Derna. Justin Bem-Hui brings us details.
More than 1,000 bodies had already been recovered in Derna alone, and officials expect that the death toll would be much higher after Storm Daniel ravaged across the Mediterranean into a country crumbling from more than a decade of conflict. Reports say Derna, a coastal city of around 125,000 inhabitants, had vehicles overturned on the edges of roads, trees knocked down, and abandoned, flooded houses. Tamer Ramadan, head of a delegation of the International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, confirmed that the number of missing persons is hitting 10,000 so far. Described by experts as extreme in terms of the amount of water falling, Storm Daniel has already claimed at least 27 lives in recent days in Greece, Turkey and Bulgaria. Daniel hit eastern Libya on Sunday afternoon, particularly the coastal towns of Jabal, Al-Agda, northeast, but also Benghazi, where a curfew was declared and schools closed. The east of the country is home to the main oil fields and terminals. The National Oil Company declared a state of maximum alert and suspended flights between production sites where activity has been drastically reduced. Justin Bemui, NTA News.
And still from the foreign scene, Speaker Kelvin McCarthy says he's directing a House committee to open a formal impeachment inquiry into U.S. President Joe Biden over his family's business dealings, launching historic proceedings ahead of the 2024 election. McCarthy said the House Oversight Committee's investigation so far has found a culture of corruption around the Biden family as Republicans probe the business dealings of Biden's son, Hunter Biden, from before the Democratic president took office. McCarthy pointed out that the allegations of abuse of power, obstruction and corruption warrant further investigation by the House of Representatives, adding that he is directing the House committee to open a formal impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden. The announcement comes as the Republican leader faces mounting pressure from his right flank to take action against Biden, while he is also struggling to pass legislations needed to avoid a federal government shutdown at the end of the month. And back home in Nigeria, Indonesia and Nigeria are to make good use of the comparative advantage they share in the economy and other critical sectors for beneficial bilateral relations. The commitment is coming at the heels of a strategic engagement between Indonesian ambassador to Nigeria and the APC national chairman Abdullahi Umar Ganduje. Political correspondent Abubakar Akwanga reports.
Indonesia and Nigeria are two sovereign nations that share similar population size, and the task of managing the common denominator rests on gainful collaboration and the deepening of diplomatic ties. The visiting ambassador and national chairman of APC dwelled more in areas of harnessing renewable energy and exploring the huge potentials in the mining sector, which both promised to fully utilize for the benefit of the affected countries.
My minister said that he knows that Nigeria is this very potential and strategic partner of Indonesia since 1965.
The cost of transportation by implication is increasing, but with electric or gas vehicles, that problem will be resolved.
And now to party issues. The governing All Progressives Congress APC has received a new entrant and former Deputy Governor of Kogi State, Abayomi Sunday Awoniyi, from the PDP fold, barely a few weeks to the November governorship poll in the state.
It's quite clear that the next 4 or 8 years would be a complete departure from what we have known.
By the grace of God, this is a sign that the election of 11 November 2023 is a landslide.
He has come at the right time because now we are gearing up for an off-season election in Kogi State.
The national chairman also received different groups who were at the national secretariat to throw their weight behind the national leadership of the party and pledged their unalloyed support and loyalty to a purposeful governance under the Tinubu's presidency. The national chairman appreciates the groups and urged them to ensure transparency, accountability and integrity in the administration of party affairs for the greater prosperity of the governing party and the nation, which relies on the party's strength to succeed. In Abuja, Abubakar Akwanga, NTA News.
Talking food security now, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations has launched an emergency response plan to provide essential support to communities in Sudan. The initiative is aimed at addressing food insecurity occasioned by war and environmental factors in the country. Musa Babali reports.
A survey conducted by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, FAO, indicates that more than 20 million people in Sudan are experiencing high levels of acute food insecurity. The situation has been worsened by the ongoing war between the Sudanese armed forces and the Rapid Support Forces, which has displaced nearly 5.1 million people within Sudan and across the country's borders. The UN intervention through the FAO will provide seeds, livestock treatment kits, veterinary and fishery support to boost crop production, improve seed diversification, and protect animal stock for depleting. The initiative is expected to meet the cereal requirements of up to 19 million people for the upcoming 2023 harvest. Farmers will also be trained in post practices to enhance handling of post-harvest produce, including important byproducts such as manure. To keep local economies going and ensure steady access to quality foods, the UN agency will also support 50,000 people, including 10,000 fishing households, with equipment such as boats and gear. The agency response plan will deploy a combination of unconditional cash assistance and livelihood support, including seeds and tools, along with training to reach the most vulnerable households. Musa Aliyu, NTA News.
Meanwhile, the federal government and the International Fund for Agricultural Development are currently reviewing the impact of their joint projects in Nigeria. Once again, Musa Ali reports that the focus is on the Agricultural Value Chain Development Program.
This is the 10th review mission of the Value Chain Development Program that focuses on rice, cassava production. Implementers of the program from the United Nations Agency, Federal Ministry of Agriculture, alongside the benefiting farmers, are assessing the progress so far. Dr. Fatih Aliyu, the National Program Coordinator, said despite the environmental challenges such as flooding, the Value Chain Initiative has significantly improved on the national food security.
We are also able to give support to our farmers who are worst hit by the flood last year. We gave them intervention. We gave them some intervention during the dry season.
The mainstreaming and commitment of gender and youth inclusion is evident through job creations, skill development, and income-generating opportunities for women and youth.
Moving forward, the country representative of the International Fund for Agricultural Development says priority will be on climate-smart agriculture, youth empowerment, and digital data generation.
Our vision in doing this joint supervision mission is to identify ways to enhance the results in line with the Nigeria food system transformation pathways, the Sustainable Development Goal, and the Presidential Emergency Declaration on Nigeria food security.
Apart from the VCDP, IFAD is assisting Nigeria in the areas of flood mitigation in the country. Musa Aliyu, NTA News.
You're watching the news on NTA International. Let's take a break now. More reports ahead to stay. You're still watching the news on NTA International. Now, leaders of 9 small island states appeared at the United Nations Maritime Court in Hamburg on Monday, seeking protection of the world's oceans from catastrophic climate change as rising sea levels threaten their existence. Justin Bemwe brings us details.
9 small island states are asking the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea to determine if carbon dioxide emissions absorbed by the oceans can be considered pollution, and if so, what obligations countries have to protect the marine environment. The island states said decades of diplomacy pleading with the large emitters of greenhouse gases to reduce emissions have not yielded results, which is why they have taken this initiative.
Why small island states have taken the initiative, have taken the front row in as far as this initiative is concerned, because there's nowhere else for us to go. There's nowhere else for us to go. And so for us, this is all about as far as small island states are concerned, this is about our livelihood. But then you look at the bigger picture, this is all about humanity.
The Bahamas, Niue, Palau, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Antigua and Barbuda are also part of this coalition.
And that should help to complement the climate diplomacy that has been taking place at the various COPs. So this is a complementary pathway to ensure that we get leaders globally to enhance their ambitions, to make sure that we reduce global warming. We're literally suffering from all the consequences. So, for example, we have droughts, we have had floods, we have seen more ferocious and frequent hurricanes, heat waves, bushfires. We have even lost a part of our coastline as a result of sea level rise.
As one of the world's largest carbon sinks, the ocean absorbs 25% of all carbon dioxide emissions and captures 90% of the excess heat generated by them. It also generates 50% of the planet's oxygen. Excessive carbon pollution causes harmful chemical reactions such as acidification and coral bleaching, and endangers the ocean's ability to absorb carbon dioxide and safeguard life on Earth. The low-lying island states are also at risk of becoming submerged by water by the end of the century. Justin Bemuni, NTA News.
Now to health. The federal government is prioritizing increasing domestic health financing, industrialization and improved health outcomes. Vice President Kashim Shettima stated this when a delegation from the Global Health Partners, the Global Fund, U.S. President's Malaria Initiative and the U.S. President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief visited the presidential villa. State House correspondent Abdurrahman Jibrila reports.
Repositioning Nigeria's healthcare system is possible if these three major commitments are achieved. Vice President Kashim Shettima said the determination of the nation towards achieving a higher pedestal in changing the narrative of inclusive growth is part of President Tinubu's vision to drive the change. The Vice President urged the global health partners and other stakeholders in the health sector to support the new leadership in the health ministry to actualize government's vision for all Nigerians.
We're developing a program with them to retrain 120,000 frontline health workers in Nigeria in all the states over the next 12 to 18 months. These workers will be trained, who will serve population in the grassroots through a primary healthcare system that we have working with the state governors and local governments. That's an important contribution to build Nigerian healthcare system to be more resilient, to deliver on HIV, on TB, and importantly on malaria.
The visit of the global health partners coincides with the commemoration of U.S. government's 20 years of support to Nigeria's fight against HIV/AIDS, which has provided opportunity to appreciate the vision and direction of the Tinubu administration for the health sector.
Nigeria is the largest recipient of global fund financing of any country in the world. And we are in the process of designing programs and committing about $1 billion that will be provided by the Global Fund to Nigeria over the next 3 years.
And over the last close to 20 years, we've invested about $7.8 billion in supporting your fight against HIV/AIDS. We want to assure the government of Nigeria that we will continue to work with them under their leadership as they chart a new direction for the health outcomes in the country.
What we want to try to do is twofold. Number one, we want to protect people from ever getting malaria, right, by protecting them from being bitten. But number two, if they do get malaria, we want to be able to have rapid diagnosis, so quick diagnosis with a rapid test, and then treat them as quickly as possible to try to prevent the complications of malaria, which can result in death for the two most at-risk groups, which are children under 5 and pregnant women.
All the partners pledged their support and commitment to work with the Tinubu administration to deliver on its mandate and vision for the health sector. From the State House, Abraham Jibrila, NTA News.
Away from health, the Renewed Hope initiative has given a new lease of life to homeless victims of communal clashes in Mangu and 5 other local government areas in Plateau State. A total of 500 affected residents were presented with a check of 1 million naira each. State House correspondent NTAi reports that the national chairman of the initiative and Nigeria's First Lady Oluremi Tinubu was unjust to make their donations.
Our arrival at the Yakubu Gowon Airport, Jos, was met with fanfare, setting the mood for a philanthropic mission to Plateau State. In recent time, the state had grabbed national attention as a staging area for a series of communal clashes, which rendered many residents in Mangu, Bassa, Riyom, Bokos, Barikin Ladi, and Jos South local government areas homeless. For those who lost their lives, a 1-minute silence was observed as a mark of respect. But for those alive without proper roofs on their head, the First Lady says it is time to push for their resettlement.
We are here today not only to sympathize with you, but to offer a modest support.
That promise of modest support took the form of 1 million naira donation to 500 victims as bank checks made out in their names were presented to the state governor, Caleb Mutfwang.
I want you to know that you are not alone in the journey to recovery. We stand with you in solidarity and prayers as you return to your homes and communities to rebuild.
The current administration, she says, is committed to pursuing dialogue and reconciliation that will foster lasting peace across the country.
In these trying times, let us remember that our diversity is our strength, and together we can overcome the challenges that threaten our unity.
On behalf of the beneficiaries, the state governor applauded the gesture and expressed gratitude to the First Lady for allowing her heart to go out in care and concern for those in need.
We are going to supervise the use of this money, and we are going to ensure that the purpose for which Her Excellency intended it, that it is well executed.
The joy on the faces of beneficiaries tell a better story of the impact the intervention by the Renewed Hope initiative will have on their community.
So many orphans and widows are suffering. They don't have houses to stay.
It's going to help seriously because some of them are in the classes, primary schools. Some of them don't even have food to eat. So we try to see how we can provide shelter, at least immediate shelter for them.
Donation of 500 million naira to 500 beneficiaries in 6 local government areas of Jos is in line with the social investment program, one of the key focal intervention areas of the Renewed Hope initiative. It is tied to the belief that when a tragedy occurs, it is not just enough, to sympathize and condole with the affected, but to do more, take concrete actions that will enhance their recovery. From Jos in Plateau State, NTAi, NTA News.
In other news, the House of Representatives has asked the National Boundary Commission to hold further demarcation of boundaries between Nigeria and Cameroon to prevent loss of Nigerian territory. At the hearing of the House had a committee on the international boundary disputes between Nigeria and Cameroon, stakeholders expressed concern over conflicting interpretations of the International Court of Justice ruling on the matter, with potential loss of significant landmass of Nigerian territory in Adamawa and Cross River states.
What the court ruled is that go and use these documents to re-establish the boundary as it has always been recognized. Nigeria and Cameroon differed. They differed in the interpretation of the judgment, as a result of which we have 3 areas we designate as disagreement areas.
Let us go on a fact-finding mission, and then we will intervene. Because whatever you're trying to do, the communities have a right, and their rights must be considered. So I rule that you put the demarcation exercise on hold pending the resolution of all the disputed territories.
And next is Sports Update. In Sports Update with Olumude ends the news at 7 on NTA International. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Elizabeth Omori, and our sign language interpreter is Hannah Olainka.